Hello everyone, thank you for joining this video hearings webinar. My name is Claire Dukes and I'm the Senior Service Manager for the Video Hearing Service at HMCTS. The Video Hearing Service is HMCTS's strategic video product, and today we're going to show you a demonstration. This will last approximately 15 minutes, following which we'll move to a question and answer session.
So welcome to this demonstration of the Video Hearing Service. Today we will be covering the journeys and functionalities made available to our legal reps. This is the first page that a legal rep or user would land on when they sign into the Video Hearing Service, and it displays their list of hearings for today. In this example, there is only one hearing listed. You can sign into your hearing by clicking on the Sign into Hearing button. You can also change the language of the content across the service by clicking on this button here. Once the language and the content has been changed to Welsh, you can change it back to English by clicking on the same button. We will now sign into this hearing, complete our self-test, review the rules of the court, and access the waiting room, where we will start a private consultation with the other parties and enter the hearing when the judge is ready. The first thing that happens when we sign in is we're told what to expect from our journey to our hearing today. So we will be checking my equipment and learning about the rules of the courts. To test our equipment, we have to turn on our camera and microphone first. So when I click switch on, my camera and microphone on this browser are now turned on. If I've not turned them on before, I may get a pop-up asking me to allow permissions. It's very important that we do allow permissions to access the video hearing service. We're now going to watch a short video that will help us to determine that our camera is working, our microphone is working, and that we're able to connect to the service. This will last about 30 to 45 seconds. I can see myself in the self-view here, which confirms my camera is working, and I can see that the microphone bar moves when I speak, which confirms that the microphone is working.
Hello, and welcome to the Video Hearing Service. In this recording, I'm going to help you check that your camera and microphone are working properly, so you're ready for your hearing. If your camera is working, you should see yourself in a small window on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. If your microphone is working, you should see a bar beneath your video window which will be responding to my voice. It will also move when you speak. In a moment, I'm going to pause so you can check that the bar moves when you speak into the microphone. Please go ahead and count from 1 to 5 now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Thank you. You can now click the button below to answer a few short questions to confirm your equipment is working.
Excellent. So because we were able to see that video, we know that we're able to connect to the conference. We're just going to wait a couple more seconds to complete the recording, complete the test, apologies, and ensure that a accurate self-test score is sent to our video hearing officer. At any point, we can watch the video again, change our camera or microphone, or continue if we've already completed the test earlier. After completing the test, we get 3 questions to confirm that our equipment was working from our end as well. So I'm asked, was my camera working? Yes. Was my microphone working? Yes. If I select no to any of these questions, it will send an alert automatically to our video hearing officer, who will be able to contact us and help us with our issue. We can also contact them if we need some help more urgently, or we need to ask any questions through the Contact Us for Help button. And if we need to check our equipment again, we can do so through the Check My Equipment Again button. Next, we have to review the rules for the court. I won't stay on this page for too long, as I expect that they will be familiar to everyone here. Lastly, before accessing our waiting room, we have to sign a declaration to confirm that we will not record or take any images of this hearing. We mustn't record the audio or video of a hearing without explicit permission beforehand, and if I try to continue without Confirming that I understand this, I will not be able to access my hearing. I must confirm that I will not take any images or record this hearing. This is our hearing waiting room. A couple of things to cover off here. Firstly, we can return to our video hearing list at any time if we have multiple hearings for today. We can also change our camera and microphone if we need to, once we've connected to the waiting room. I've received an instant message from one of our video hearing officers prior to the hearing starting. We can contact them throughout the hearing when we're connected to the waiting room to request assistance or technical support. I will just respond. And there we are. I can see a list of the other participants attending this hearing today. I can see my claimant, an observer, and a respondent with their interpreter, as well as the representative for the respondent. I can also see the judge's name and the hearing information along the top. If I want to start a private consultation with either the person I'm representing or the other party, I can do so through these two buttons here. If I'm unsure what a private meeting is, I can click here to find out more about it. I will now start a private meeting with the person that I am representing. I can also join a private meeting if there is one already in session, but there is none at the moment. When I click Start a Private Meeting, I can see the list of people that are available for me to have a consultation with. You'll notice that the observer is not displayed in this screen because we cannot start private consultations with observers. I'm going to select the person I'm representing and start a private meeting. Once I'm transferred in, invite is sent to the other party who is also invited into the consultation. Hello, Emma.
Hello.
Perfect. Once we're in the consultation room, there is a number of functionalities available to us. I have a list of the participants that I can invite in here on the right, but if I don't want to see that, I can close it and open it again. I'm able to share my screen within the consultation room, but I will do that later on within the hearing. I can also change my camera and microphone from within the consultation room, open and close my self view, and I can also turn my camera off and back on again. Lastly, I can mute and unmute myself. Before I go into locking the room, we're going to invite the representative for the other party. So I will click on the telephone icon near their name. And if they accept the call, they will be transferred in. Hello, Lucy, how are you?
Hello, good morning. I'm okay. How are you?
Very well, thank you. As we mentioned earlier, I can join a private meeting that's already in session, if that room is still unlocked. What I'm going to do now is lock this room so that nobody else can enter. And to demonstrate that nobody else can enter, what I will do is leave and try to enter the room through the Join a Meeting button. Emma or Lucy, once I have left the room, if you could please count to 10 and invite me back in. Thank you. Back in the waiting room, I can see that two parties are in a locked consultation room. If I try to enter the same room, I cannot. We get a loud ringing sound when we're invited into a consultation room to alert us that we're being invited in. I have accepted that session. Folks, that alert that we've just heard is to indicate that the hearing is due to start any minute now. So what we will do now is unlock the room and return to the waiting room to wait for the judge to start the hearing. If the judge starts the hearing while we are still in a consultation room, we'll get pulled in automatically. Thank you. As you can see, following that alert we had earlier, the waiting room has changed a little bit and it's telling me to stay near my screen. This is to alert me that the hearing is due to start in any minute and it's no longer a good time to pop to the restroom or go and get a glass of water. You will have also heard just before that a loud alert to tell me that that I was being invited into a consultation. I can always accept or decline an invitation into a consultation room. The judge will now start the hearing. When the judge starts the hearing, we once again get a loud ringing sound to alert us that the hearing is about to start.
The hearing will start in a few seconds.
Bydd y gwrandawiad yn cychwyn mewn ychydig eiliadau.
A countdown is played before the hearing starts. For those who can't make out what's happening on the screen, audio is also played to inform them that the hearing is about to start, in English and in Welsh. We are now in the hearing. Hello, everyone. If you could please come off mute and say hello.
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 Perfect, thank you. So we're going to briefly go over some of the functionality within the hearing UI. There are a number of layouts available to us. This one is the 1+7 layout. Within this layout, the judge or the host can spotlight the users that they need to or feel is appropriate. In this example, we're going to be spotlighting our interpreter VMR containing my colleagues Komal and Ronald. A quick overview of the functionality within the in-hearing UI. By default, my self-view is closed. I can open that through that button. I can also turn my camera off and back on again while I'm in the hearing. My microphone is muted when I first join into the hearing. I unmuted it at the beginning, but I can of course mute it again and unmute it again. And I can of course also change my camera and microphone while I'm connected to the hearing. If the judge feels that I'm being too disruptive or have too much background noise, they can mute me remotely. When they do so, I am no longer able to unmute myself, but I can raise my hand to alert the judge that I would like to be unmuted so I can speak. The judge can then unlock my mute and lower my hand. I am now able to unmute myself again. Next, we're going to cover the interpreter VMR functionality. In this hearing, we have Komal and Ron sharing an interpreter VMR. What this means is that they are able to communicate with one another during the course of the hearing without requiring us to stop and allowing them to translate. To demonstrate this, Ronald and Komal, could you please both say hello? You're both on mute. Could you try that again, please?
Hello, Ron.
Hello, Camille.
Perfect, thank you. What I'm going to do now is mute the VMR for the interpreter so that they can translate the goings-on of the hearing without us hearing the translation. So now that I've done that, Komal and Ron, could you please say hello to each other again and give me a thumbs up if you can hear each other? Perfect, thank you. I will unlock your VMR. So that is our interpreter VMR functionality. Lastly, I'm going to briefly demonstrate the screen sharing functionality available to us within the hearing. In this example, the judge is going to screen share a blank page just for the purposes of this demo. When the screen sharing starts, it will take over the main window of the screen, and everyone will be able to see the evidence being displayed. If I am already familiar with the evidence and would prefer to look at the faces or the whites of the eyes of the other parties, I can click on this window in the top left and move the evidence in its place. When the other parties or the judge stop sharing their screen, it will close by itself. I will now close the hearing, and thank you very much to everyone who's been involved. Now that we're back in the closed hearings waiting room, we have access to a short survey through which we can feed back on our experience or any technical issues that we might have seen. We can also, once again, access the private consultation rooms for up to 2 hours after the hearing is closed. This has been our demo of the video hearing service. Thank you very much for your time.
So we hope you found that demonstration of the video hearing service useful. We have our panel with us who are going to introduce themselves, and then we're going to answer some questions that have come through on the chat.
Hello, my name is Lorenzo. I'm one of the business analysts on the video hearings product team.
And I'm Susie Carberry. I work in the video hearing service team.
Thank you. So we've had quite a few questions come, which is great. And we're going to start off with someone who asks, what happens if a self-represented party doesn't read English or Welsh?
So it's a good question. It's ultimately a judicial decision as to whether a hearing can go ahead via video hearing medium. If a party is not able to access the service, then we can make reasonable adjustments to either move it across to a more suitable medium or ensure that they can have someone there with them to help out on the day.
Brilliant, thank you. We've also been asked if people can attend by phone, particularly if the video quality is poor.
Yes, they can. They can attend via a normal mobile or landline connection. It's an 0800 number, so it's a free number in the UK.
Brilliant. And we have also been asked, how do you add your name and who you are representing?
So that's actually added at the booking stage by our listing officers. So when we receive the information about the hearing, we'll list the participants and who they're representing, or if they're representing themselves, and it will already be there when you sign in on the day.
Fantastic. We've been asked by quite a few people when the video hearing service is going to be used in a few different places. So let's take this one. Where is the video hearing service currently being used in the civil jurisdiction, and where is information available which confirms where it is being used?
Okay, thank you. So at the moment we are using the video hearing service in Birmingham Civil Justice Centre and Teesside Civil Justice Centre. Birmingham was our original pilot court back in 2021, and they've continued to use that once the pilot concluded. We've recently gone to Teesside as an early adopter. In relation to where you can actually find this information, because it's a fluid position, we aren't actually uploading it to gov.uk, but when we are in a position to announce the national rollout, we will do so and share that with representatives and users more widely in the locations as we come to those different settings.
Thank you. We've also been asked, is the plan for the video hearing service to replace other methods of accessing remote hearings? And if so, when do we plan to have the service fully rolled out?
Yes, as I said in the introduction, the video hearing service is HMCTS's strategic product, so it will seek to replace both CVP and Teams. CVP was rolled out as a tactical solution to accommodate the challenges we faced during the pandemic. That was never the long-term plan. In terms of when we see the video hearing service fully live across England and Wales, and indeed in the tribunals in Scotland, we aim to do this during this current financial year, i.e. financial year 22-23.
Thank you. So a couple of questions around sort of using the service, as it were. Can a litigant in person invite another party into a private room, for example, as a means of intimidation?
So yes, they could. However, the other party can always decline that invitation. And once they've entered the room, they can also, if they're not comfortable or if they feel they're being intimidated, they can also leave. They can contact the video hearing officer to let them know that something inappropriate has happened, and they can forward that information on to the judge as well.
Thank you. We've been asked if it's possible to blur or change your background so that parties or a judge can't see it.
So we do have background blurring and a couple of preset backgrounds available for judges and panel members or members of the judiciary in hearings. At the moment, that's not available for regular participants or observers there.
Thank you. We've been asked how invites are sent out for video hearings to parties.
It's all sent out via email. You will receive an email when the hearing is booked, and you will also receive a reminder email 48 hours before the start time.
Okay. We've also been asked if council are allowed to share screens.
Yes, yes. All parties except observers are able to share screen in a hearing or in a consultation room, as the case may be.
Okay. Linked to that, we've also been asked if someone other than the judge can share their screen, and if so, what icon do they need to click, and what happens if a person drops out or needs time to have a brief conference before resuming the hearing?
So first part of that question, yes, someone other than the judge can share their screen. At the top of the window, there is a box icon with an arrow pointing up, which gives you the screen share options from which a participant can share their screen. Sorry, could you repeat the second question there for me?
Yeah, bear with me. So if can people have a brief conference before resuming a hearing?
Absolutely. So whenever the hearing isn't in session, they can, so whenever it's paused or not started or closed, the parties can have a brief consultation or a longer one, as the case may be. The judge will be able to see that there are parties in consultation and can either end their consultation by starting the hearing, or they can wait it out and let the parties finish their discussions.
Okay. We've been asked if a participant can have a trial run ahead of the actual hearing.
Okay. So yeah, we do actually support users, particularly professional users who may have issues with their firewall policy, to onboard before their first hearing. We are doing that obviously to make sure that everybody can access the service easily and we can deal with any challenges they may face. So yeah, we have the opportunity as we start to roll out.
Brilliant. We've been asked a question about that surrounds accessibility. So for interpreters, can they be enlarged? Our questioner is saying that for deaf users, they would need a much bigger view of their interpreter.
So in the demonstration we just saw, we obviously saw the interpreter VMR from the perspective of someone who isn't an interpreter or interpretee. The way the layout looks from within the interpreter's VMR is slightly different. Pretty much half of the layout is taken up by the interpreter or the interpretee, depending which one you are. And then the remaining parties are shown in a separate tile, which is a bit smaller. So that means that yes, the interpreter is a fair bit larger for the interpretee to be able to see during the course of the hearing.
Thank you. Can representatives and clients speak without everybody else hearing to take instructions?
During the hearing, unless they're in a VMR, which is not the case for representative and client, they can, of course, speak without anyone hearing them in consultation rooms. Our consultation rooms are never recorded, and so they are a private space for a representative and client to discuss or take instructions.
So we've been asked if the video hearing service is likely to extend into the crime jurisdiction, and then leading from that also, will it extend to the presentation of expert forensic evidence in criminal cases?
Yes, so the video hearing service will be used across all jurisdictions, and we do have the facility to share evidence.
Brilliant. Oh, somebody says, does the service work the Safari browser?
It does indeed.
Let's have a look. Can someone other than the judge share their screen, and if so, what icon do they use to do so?
I think we've covered that one already, but yes, someone other than the judge, anyone but observers can share their screen.
Okay. So we've also been asked if a judge decides whether to mute interpreters whilst they're doing their interpreting. On the demo we were showing, interpreters could be muted.
Yeah, so it's sort of like that. The judge can mute the interpreter's VMR which is sort of a meeting room within the meeting room that hosts the interpreter and the interpretee. When the judge mutes that VMR, the two parties within it can speak to each other without the rest of the hearing listening in. So that allows the simultaneous interpretation to occur. The judge can also, of course, unmute that VMR when the interpreter or the interpretee needs to speak to the court as a whole.
Okay. If a party loses their internet connection, is the hearing logged? And if so, how do they regain access?
So if a party loses their internet connection, a couple of things occur. Firstly, an alert is shown to the judge or the clerk in the hearing to tell them that this party has become disconnected. They will usually see an alert saying that this party is having network issues beforehand, so it gives them an opportunity to check that, can you still hear me? Can you still see me? Can I still see and hear you? In second place, an alert gets sent to our video hearing officers when a party gets disconnected so that they can reach out to that person and try and help them get back in without needing to disrupt the hearing or to distract the judge or the clerk too much. And in terms of getting back in, they're automatically pulled back in once they're reconnected. So when a user reconnects to the internet, they will be able to reconnect to our waiting room, which we saw earlier, and then they'll be automatically transferred back into the hearing room. There is an exception for that, which is for users who have signed in via a quick link, in which case the judge or the clerk will be able to see that this person has reconnected and they will readmit them in promptly.
Thank you. This is a really important question about vulnerable users of the service. Is it possible for there to be special measures in place for victims of domestic violence so that they don't see the perpetrator and vice versa?
That is quite a complicated thing to explain on the video. I'm going to have to take that offline and respond to that individual directly because it's not that straightforward to explain.
Okay. So a really, really good question here. Really simple. Is it the judge who controls the system or the clerk?
So it's either one or both. We have a setup that allows two hosts. So either the judge does all of the controls, or they split the work with the clerk, or just the clerk does it, depending on what the judge has agreed with that clerk.
We've been asked, how is evidence presented and authority shared?
I'm not sure I fully understood the question. We can present evidence through the screen sharing functionality.
Okay. Maybe if the person who asked that question, we can share a contact email for the video hearings team, and we can maybe take that one separately. Let's have a look. So, does a transcriber or other hearing service provider, for example, bundle hosting service or electronic presentation of evidence professional, attend the hearing in the same way as any other participant?
They certainly can. There's nothing stopping them from doing so in an observer or participant role. We do, of course, also record many of our hearings. That's usually set at the booking stage and determined by the type of hearing as well. So if the procedures, if the hearing needs to be transcribed, what we can do is retrieve that recording and share that with the transcription service to transcribe.
Thank you. How do lay clients join or receive the link?
They will receive it via email when they've been added to the hearing or to the booking.
It's also worth mentioning that in the pre-hearing information, people are signposted to various sources of information on Gov.uk. There's a short video that sets out exactly what the user journey is going to be so that users know what to expect.
Okay.
Correct. Thank you.
Really, really good question here. What if a name or the name of a person being represented has been input into the system incorrectly?
Yep, so that can be amended by our video hearing officers who are supporting the service.
Okay. I think you might have covered part of this question, but just in case the person asking it joined us a little bit late, does the video hearing service replace CVP And also, what determines the type of hearing that's being used?
So ultimately, the video hearing service will look to replace CVP in time. The CVP solution was rolled out in basically in response to the pandemic. The video hearing service is HMCTS's strategic product. In terms of determining whether a video hearing service or indeed any remote hearing takes place, that comes down to judicial discretion. And whilst we can put guidance forward, ultimately it is for the judiciary to decide whether it's suitable for participants to appear remotely.
Okay. We've been asked if you can record a normal face-to-face hearing using the video hearing service.
You can. There's nothing stopping you from booking a hearing with just a judge and one party. You do, of course, need a judge.
Okay.
And it would only record the audio.
Of course, yes.
Obviously,
it would only record the audio.
Yeah, it would just be the audio that would be recorded.
How can a lay observer join a hearing, and how could a party object in advance?
So there's two ways an observer could join, similar to a party. Either they're booked into the hearing in advance, so at the time of booking we know that there will be this observer also attending, in which case they will receive a set of emails including their username and password to log in. If it's a last-minute observer that hasn't been added to the booking a priori, then they would receive a quick link which allows them to input a name and get added directly to that one hearing without needing to have a username generated. If a party wanted to object, they would have to speak to the judge or do it much earlier on if it's an observer that was booked on a priori.
So just to expand on that, the same principle applies in a video hearing as it would in a face-to-face hearing. At the end of the day, the judge makes that ultimate decision if there's a reason why there could be a conflict or someone should not be able to observe the video hearing.
Thank you. So we've had a question. Will the video hearings officer be monitoring every hearing and be able to offer immediate help on tech issues?
Yes, there will be a video hearing officer available for all video hearings, and they will be monitoring the hearing to provide support as and when needed.
I think this might have come from a court professional. Can we have hybrid hearings using big screens in our courtrooms?
Yes.
That's a nice simple one. Let's see. Can the service be used by a Mackenzie friend, such as in family matters, or others by permission of the court? And if so, how would they be informed?
It's exactly the same principle as anybody joining as a participant, so they would be allowed to join to support the individual and they would be booked onto the service in the same way.
Brilliant. Is the video hearing service connected to the e-filing service?
No, it's not, no.
We've had a couple of questions about whether the video hearing service will be used in the High Court.
Yes, the video hearing service will be used across all jurisdictions.
Okay, do we don't know yet?
We don't have a start date for the High Court, no.
Is it anticipated that a clerk will be present at video hearings, and if so, will they operate the video hearing service, or is it expected that a judge will do that?
So both options are available. We do have the facility for a clerk to help host the hearing with a judge, to share those responsibilities or to hand them over, as the case may be. Obviously, a judicial or a court-based decision as to whether a clerk will be participating in a given hearing.
Thank you.
I'll just add that it's the same principle again with a face-to-face hearing. If you would have a clerk in the face-to-face hearing, then ordinarily a clerk would be allocated in a video hearing.
We've got a really lovely question here. If you're used to using Teams, what are the biggest changes?
It's a very good question. So we have, over the months and years, actually made a conscious effort to mimic some of the in-hearing and in-consultation UI with what you see in Teams. So you may have noticed in the demo that the close and leave button are in a similar place to where they would be in Teams. The mute button, the turn camera off button, they're all sort of in a similar position, and that's very much intentional. The key difference that I don't think we'll ever get around is that it's a different product, right? So Teams is a video conferencing service. We're building a video hearings service, and those are similar but not the same. So a lot of the things that you're accustomed to in Teams, for example, chats or being able to spin up a room on demand or call someone that's not in that hearing, is obviously not something that would be available in the video hearing service right away.
I think it's worth kind of supporting that as well by just saying that it has been, because it's been designed for video hearings, so official proceedings. We've tried to ape the kind of formality and experience that people would expect of court proceedings. So, you know, it's not video conferencing. There are rules underlying the service that mean that, you know, people can't do things that they might do in a casual kind of conversation, as Lorenzo said. So it's been very much designed, you know, the user journey, they see what court rules are. They have to indicate that they're not going to record proceedings. So it's, you know, it has been designed to try and ape and the experience of court proceedings.
Thank you. So we've got an awful lot of questions around interpreting, and in the use of interpreters. A really different one that's come through is, if interpreters can be muted and no one can hear what they are saying, how can we be sure that they are not being told what to say in response to questions? Basically, that something improper is taking place. What safeguards do we have for that sort of thing?
It's a good question. So the interpreter VMRs are always recorded separately. So if after the fact somebody wanted to challenge the quality of the interpretation or the instructions, what was said during the interpretation, we can retrieve the recording of that interpreter room and see what was actually being said. Does that answer the question? Also, during the hearing, the judge can unmute that room so that they can, you know, the judge can actually hear what's being said. Whether the judge can speak the language is another thing, but the judge can obviously hear what's being said if they choose to.
Thank you. A point we've not really touched on too much so far is what about members of the press? How are we making sure that members of the press are able to join video hearings where they're allowed, and that we're supporting open justice?
So the press can join in the same way as any other observers. We are probably looking at doing a slightly streamlined channel so that the press don't have to go through the same level of formality. People on this call may be aware of the fact, obviously, that the recent legislation has gone through around open justice. So we are currently working up our processes to make sure that we can comply. But I can reassure people the video hearing service is able to support the latest open justice legislation.
We're still getting lots of questions around the rollout to criminal courts. So we'll just repeat that it will come in time effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the rollout to the criminal courts, we are now working with our colleagues in the criminal jurisdictions to actually look at what that means in practice and how we can do that. But I think it's fair to say that it's going to be a phased rollout, and we'd invite people obviously to subscribe to our various different publications so that you ensure you know when it's coming, particularly to areas where you currently practice. And we will clearly be engaging at a later date. But our aim is for that to happen during this current financial year.
Back to a sort of more technical question. What supplier are we using for audio recordings?
So our audio recordings are stored in blob storage.
Yeah, it's an internal facility that we use. I probably need a little bit more detail as to why the name of the supplier has been requested, but happy to take that offline and come back to on that one.
Okay. Another one around video hearings officers. Is a video hearings officer a different name for our court clerks, and will they be trained?
So no, in principle, no. The video hearing officer is somebody who is a separate role to the court clerk. The court clerk can undertake some of the activities the video hearing officer is designated to undertake, but the actual role of a video hearing officer sits outside of the courtroom, and indeed outside of the court building in some circumstances, so they are distinctly different roles.
Thank you. Another kind of quite technical question. Is there a facility during a hearing for a rep and their client to correspond? So the kind of the equivalent of a word in the ear, passing a note to give instructions, even if only by text?
No, not at the moment. So that would have to happen offline, or it would have to happen during a break in the hearing using the consultation room.
Let's see. Is the interpreter made aware when the VMR is muted or unmuted?
Yes, they will see an icon. Their mute icon at the top right will update to reflect the current status of the VMR.
Thank you. Really unusual question that I've not seen before is, can parties get assistance financially or otherwise to get access to a computer?
Not directly through HMCTS, but there may be some sector organisations that can support, but we're not actually doing that currently.
Is it worth adding that if a user doesn't have access to a computer, they can join via a smartphone or tablet if they already have that, and they can of course also join via a traditional landline or mobile connection.
And that call, if you do that, does that cost?
No, it's an 0800 number, so it's free.
Thank you. We've been asked if you need to register for the service. So Claire, this might be a good opportunity to talk about how to go about preparing if you're a legal professional to prepare for the service.
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, the service does require you to book on, so effectively that is in essence the registration process. What we are very keen to ensure though is that anybody who appears or uses a corporate network will have to check that their firewall policy is compliant. So what we are doing as we're rolling out the service is we're actually reaching out to regular users, our corporate networks, etc., just to explain that there is a need to check their firewall policy. We will do a test call with them in advance of their first hearing, and that will make sure that everything's in line. So we're doing that now with our other government departments, we're doing it with the Crown Prosecution Service, and we'll obviously do that with stakeholders as well. So as and when we start to come into an area where you practice, you will see our notifications and our signposting information, and we'll utilise that to engage with you to make sure that you can onboard successfully.
Thank you.
I think we mentioned earlier that we'd make a point of sharing that information that's on Gov.uk so that you can check your corporate firewalls beforehand.
Very frequent question we often hear is, our district judges are returning to family hearings for face-to-face hearings. So how many hearings do we foresee will be held by the video hearing service going forward?
Okay, so I mean that very much goes back to that being a judicial discretion. So if judges feel that there's need for face-to-face hearings, and clearly that is their decision. It's very hard for us to predict how many, but I think it's fair to say that we are seeing a reduction in the amount of remote hearings following what we saw at the peak of the pandemic. We certainly don't have a target. It is simply a case, it's an opportunity to appear remotely, and ultimately be a judicial decision as to whether that happens.
Thank you. Really practical question from one of our viewers. How do we communicate any technical problems with the video hearing service to users? For example, if there is an issue ahead of a hearing or during a hearing, how do we notify attendees or their organisation?
So we have a communication channel that we utilise that goes out to our operational staff in the regions, who will then obviously communicate with users as to the level of impact, any problems the video hearing service might have on them and their hearings.
I've got another question which I think kind of goes back to the point you recently made, Claire, but just in case, are there any plans to use this for bulk hearings?
It depends what's meant by bulk hearings, but ultimately the video hearing service can support all hearing types. So possession actions may be one people may be looking at. Ultimately, again, it is a decision for the judiciary, but if people wanted to list bulk hearings, then we can support that on the service.
We have had a question about features for identity checks and timesheet validations for interpreters. Do we have those?
So Identity checks are twofold. Ultimately, most users will sign in with their username and password, and that is effectively an identity check. For those users who are signing in via a quick link, usually we will know who they are before we send them a quick link. We will need contact details to contact them and send them the quick link. And we will see them in the hearing to confirm that they are who they are. They can obviously be dismissed if that is not the case. In terms of timesheets for interpreters, I don't think that is something that we will support via our product.
No, no.
Okay. Really good one. I think this one might be for you, Lorenzo. Is there any way that parties would know if a party is joining from outside the UK? As local authority, we deal with a lot of fraud for housing matters. Having an in-person court hearing is helpful for that reason.
So no, we wouldn't show the parties the IP address or the location of someone else within the hearing. We do, in our logs, actually have access to those IP addresses, and we can see if someone is connecting from abroad. So it could, in theory, be requested after the hearing. That is, of course, moderately reliable, but somebody could use a VPN to show their location as somewhere else as well.
Okay. We're getting quite a lot of comments on special measures, and can we commit to publishing our guidance on how we will support special measures, things like domestic abuse, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll take that offline and speak to the cohort of people who are particularly interested about that, because that's a separate topic in its own right, and we'll happily support that offline.
Okay. Is the core principle that it's video hearing service first and by exception in person? During the pandemic, remote hearings were seen as an acceptable alternative to in person, but not so much post-pandemic. And so could you perhaps expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can categorically say it's not a case of remote hearings first and face-to-face second. Ultimately, if the case is suitable, the hearing is suitable, should I say, for remote hearing, then the judge will direct to that effect. If they feel it's not, then it will be a face-to-face. So that the principles of how we operate in the court service and the judiciary haven't changed. I totally accept that the pandemic did put a different spin on things, usually for public health measures. So I think as we've moved away from that, we expect there to be a level of return to normal business. Video hearings provides the opportunity for flexibility with remote participation, but there is certainly no intention that it will replace face-to-face hearings.
Thank you. Someone has said, I spotted a feedback question at the end of the demo video. So will we be monitoring how the video hearing service is performing, and will we share that information publicly?
We will absolutely be monitoring how it's performing. The survey at the end of the demo that will be seen is in relation to how you experience the hearing effectively on the video hearing service. We will use that to inform continuous improvement and obviously to engage with our stakeholders to see where we take the service next.
Okay. Back to a slightly technical question. Does the service handle a witness giving evidence who needs an intermediary, i.e. a trained person who talks and shares visual explanations with the witness?
I'm not sure I understand. Could you? So we do support witnesses, and participants can join with a witness role, and they can, of course, share evidence as a witness, be that via screen sharing or via sharing audio and video. Witnesses can also have interpreters when required. I'm not quite sure what we mean by a witness intermediary. So
perhaps if the person who's asked that question, we have a project email that person can write to us directly, and we'll correspond on that separately. Let's see, we're slowly getting towards time. So let's see. If a hearing is recorded, are people able to request for proceeding judge to review the previous hearing outcome in restored hearings?
They can. The audio recordings are retrievable.
Yeah. Okay.
using the normal HMCTS processes for asking for a transcription of the hearing. So yes, absolutely.
Okay. Can a VMR contain more than 2 users, for instance, in a case where an individual may require both translation and additional support for reduced mental capacity?
So at the moment, no, our interpreter VMRs only contain up to 2 people. That is something we're looking at building out in the future.
Okay. The techie type question, is there an app you need to download like Teams or Zoom as your platform?
No. So everything is browser based. You can access the entire service through your browser. So Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Safari and Microsoft Edge. We do ask that people use the latest version of their browsers or one of the most latest versions of their browsers, and the same is true, of course, for hardware, latest operating systems where possible.
Okay. This is more of a hearing-based question. So in terms of the video hearings service support that may not be available within the court itself, are those parties privy to the hearings, and in particular those that may be subject to reporting issues? What safeguards do we have in place to protect the data from third-party exposure?
Okay, I think I answered the question, but if I haven't answered it fully, then again, I will take it offline and have a conversation with whoever's asked it. So the video hearing officer is not a party to the hearing. They are simply observing it. So in terms of sharing of data, the same principles apply. Obviously, HMCTS staff are responsible for making sure that they conduct themselves appropriately and they don't share information they learn through court hearings, etc. So again, the same principles apply in a face-to-face hearing as it would do in a video hearing. We're obligated not to share private information, and that has been a principle for many, many years.
Okay. I don't think I've asked this, apologies if I have. How many hearings will a video hearings officer have to monitor at once? How many hearings will a video hearings officer, oh no, it's the same thing, but basically how many hearings will they be looking after at one time?
Okay, so we are currently looking at how many hearings a video hearing officer can support. We do believe, having done some testing to date, that there can be concurrent hearings supported by more than one hearing supported by one VHO. So at the moment we haven't quite determined the level, but certainly the indications are that they can at least support 2 or more hearings once the hearing has started.
Right, so this feels like a complicated question, so I'm gonna say it really slowly. As you don't have the facility for a client to give instructions to his or her barrister without leaving the hearing, will this not impair the representation of the client? Is there any way we can fix this, as clients often give their barristers instructions whilst in open court?
Now, I've been asked this question in a previous forum, and I think what I have been told by practicing counsel is that they quite often use other means to communicate with their client who's not in the same venue as them. So, and that has been permitted by the judiciary. So I think there is options to do things outside of the video hearing service. But as Lorenzo said earlier, at the moment we don't have an instant message facility, but that may be part of future development.
It's interesting, actually. The way that the question was phrased with regard to somebody leaving the hearing, if somebody has a private consultation, they don't actually leave the hearing as such.
No, it's more like the physical setup, right? So you walk out of the hearing room and into a consultation.
So, you know, the hearing is paused, everybody goes back to the waiting room, the individuals have the conversation, as Lorenzo showed in the demonstration. So it's not as separated as physically leaving the hearing and then going back in. It's a little bit more straightforward than that.
Yeah.
Okay. So quite a good practical question. Sorry if we've already covered this, but if you do not get your email with the link for the hearing, can you share a link with someone else?
So no. if you receive an email with your link for the hearing, that link will be a URL, your username and your password. I strongly recommend against sharing your username and password with anyone else at all. We do have quick links that can be shared for someone who is a last-minute addition to the hearing and therefore won't have a username and password yet. In this case, then that link can be shared, but it needs to be approved by the judge first.
Thank you. I think we've got time for maybe one or two more questions now. So this is quite a practical one. With Teams calls having video calls putting quite a strain on bandwidth, particularly if it's a meeting of over kind of 5 or 6 attendees, how does the video hearing service differ? Is it more reliable? Is it more stable?
Tough question. So we are continuously and constantly working on making sure that we can handle and perform with different levels of load. One key difference between Teams and the video hearing service is that most of you on Teams will be using a client application, which is a desktop app. That has a different set of constraints and capabilities to a browser-based service, such as the video hearings one. Ultimately, it does tend to come down to the network quality and the performance levels of the hardware being used.
Thank you. So we're going to make this the last question now, I think. Is the service going to be available both sort of in England and Wales, etc., and internationally?
In terms of internationally, if that means can somebody appear remotely from a country outside of the UK, then yes, that's absolutely an opportunity if the judge directs that to happen. In terms of will we be promoting the video hearing service outside of the UK, then it has been designed for HMCTS and hearings, so we have no plans to do that.
Okay, time for one more question. Really practical. How long in advance do you need to book the hearing on the video hearings platform?
There's no constraint on that. You could book it an hour before it's meant to start. Of course, that does make it a little bit harder for the parties to actually know that they need to be in a video hearing and to receive their emails and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. With emergency applications, we can support those.
Okay, brilliant. So I think that's us kind of at time now in terms of questions. So I really hope everyone's found the demonstration useful and the answers really helpful. Really grateful for the sheer variety of questions. Clearly lots of interest in the service. If there are any further questions, we will share the email for the project team along with some feedback. So we really appreciate you coming back to us and letting us know what you thought of the presentation. But otherwise, I think we'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.